Jawas. These little babbling scrap dealers belong to Tatooine like lightsabers to the Jedi. But what are they, and what's their connection to the other species of the desert planet? Well, what if I told you that the one species they are most likely related to are Womp rats? Roll intro. Hi, this is Joel from Exceedingly Excited, and today I want to talk a little bit about Jawas. With some of The Mandalorian and lately much of the Book of Boba Fett taking place on Tatooine, we had the chance to learn more about the native peoples of the desert planet, such as the Tusken Raiders and the Jawas. Some of the things were not actually newly invented, but rather recanonized from the Legends material, like the fact that Tatooine wasn't always a great desert, but once had oceans and lush flora and fauna. However, there's one interesting topic we haven't learned all that much about in new or old canon, and that is the lineage of Tatooine's natives. In Legends, it was speculated that both Tusken Raiders, Sand People or Gorfas, all referring to the same people, as well as the smaller Jawas, descended from a common ancestral species called the Kamumga. But they were only mentioned once in new canon, and even before the connection was pure speculation. So let me put forth another possibility that could work in addition or as an alternative to the Kamumga theory. Because there is at least one more species that is native to Tatooine, but often overlooked due to their non-sentient nature, the Womp rats. And as it happens, just as the Tuskens and the Jawas, these critters made an appearance in the Book of Boba Fett lately. And this is the first time I really paid attention to how big they actually are. Remember Luke's casual comment in A New Hope?
But it's not impossible. I used to bullseye Womp rats in my T-16 back home. They're not much bigger than 2 meters.
And I'm sitting here like, holy man Kenobi, that's 6'6" and bigger. And sure enough, the Womp rat we see snatching up that BD unit in Pelimoto's yard does look quite big. I did a bit of measuring using the cargo box in this shot as reference. Since Amy Sedaris is 156 centimeters or 5 foot and 1.5 inches tall, the box should be around 85 centimeters or almost 2 foot 8 inches tall, which is about the same height as the Womp rat's back as we can see here. We have to guess the body length, but it should be somewhere around 170 centimeters or almost 5'6". I tried to confirm this with the concept art of the Womp rat, however the sizes of things are inconsistent there. R5 is supposed to be 1 meter tall and appears about the same height as the Womp rat, but is further back in the picture and hence bigger, so 85 centimeters could be a good estimate. But the pit droids, who are closer to the camera, seem to be smaller or at most the same height as the Womp rat if they didn't bend their knees, but are supposed to be 119 centimeters big and can be seen to be bigger than R5 in the actual footage, so this is not the best reference material. Long story short, if we believe what Luke said, then Womp rats are bigger, by what he probably meant longer, than 2 meters and therefore most humans, and the one we see in Pelimoto's yard is actually a rather small specimen. But why, you might ask now, should I care about the size of Womp rats? Well, because I think they are more than just annoying pests, or at least some of their close relatives are. Because, as I said before, I think they are evolutionary connected to Jawas. And I can hear some of you say, man, what a wacky theory, that doesn't make any sense, but hear me out. If I told you that I thought our real-life rats were the closest relatives to humans, closer than, say, apes for example, one counter-argument would probably be size-related. Humans are so significantly bigger than rats that any possible evolutionary link would probably at least not be a close one. But as I just demonstrated, unlike normal rats, Womp rats are actually even bigger than the 1 meter or 3'3" tall Jawas, with smaller variants apparently existing, so it's far from impossible. Also, Jawas taller than 1 meter also exist. Another argument would obviously be appearance. Humans have some hair but are generally rather naked, so to speak, while rats have fur, a very different head shape, etc. So what about Jawas and Womp rats? Well, Womp rats are mostly portrayed as more or less really big rats. Jawas, on the other hand, walk on 2 feet and have yellow or reddish eyes. That's basically the extent of visual information that we have when it comes to their species. They wear brown robes with hoods that hide everything but their glowing eyes, including head shape, skin color, and potential hair. What they look like beneath their robes is actually one of the oldest mysteries of Star Wars since their appearance in the first Star Wars movie in 1977. So, since there's obviously a lot that we don't know about Jawas, let's instead take a look at what we do know and compare that to our knowledge about Womp rats and contrast it with their other potential relatives, the Tusken Raiders. The first thing that tipped me off was something that we knew about them for a long time now. Jawas are actually sentient rodents. And this was hilariously confirmed by Pelimoto when she said,
"Dated a Jawa for a while. They're quite furry. Very furry. Lot of issues."
Despite the fact that she dated one of them anyway, that sounds a whole lot closer to a Womp rat on its hind legs than a human. A comparison to a Tusken is a little difficult for this aspect because we do not know how they look under their clothes either. Anyway, both Jawas and Womp rats are described and portrayed to have yellow or red eyes, so that's another match. Jawas are also known for their strong smell, which supposedly contains various information such as their identity, health, clan lineage, last meal, arousal, and mood. Most species find their smell repulsive, and in the book Aftermath, Edwin Charu describes it to be a musky animal odor, like a fraternity of wet rats. Wet rats, you say? Isn't that interesting? Also, both Womp rats and Jawas live as scavengers, the former of carcasses as they go for carrion and prefer to hunt old or weak animals, and the latter of all sort of machinery. Similarly, both tend to live in groups or packs and seek strength in numbers when attacking or scavenging. Similar is also their approach to humans and other humanoid species and their settlements. While Tusken Raiders see settlers as trespassers and tend to keep away from settlements and are hostile toward them, Jawas and Womp rats benefit from settlements by going through their waste, and in the case of Jawas, even trade with the settlers, but mostly in stolen goods. So, what about the language? Womp rats are non-sentient and hence don't speak in a traditional sense. And as much as I would like to claim otherwise, Jawese doesn't really sound that similar to squeaking rats. But it doesn't sound like any of the Tusken sounds either, and Jawas rather rely on someone being able to understand them, while they also understand but do not speak Galactic Basic or Outer Rim Basic. The Tusken, on the other hand, use hand gestures when communicating with humans and other species. So Jawese and Tusken do not seem to have a lot in common. Lastly, we know that Womp rats eat carrion and hunt some other animals and like to go through the trash of human settlements. What do Jawas eat? They apparently like the giant eggs of the Mudhorn, one of which the Mandalorian gets for them in trade for all the parts of his ship, so that must be a delicacy. And it's not at all unthinkable that Womp rats would eat them as well. But more interestingly, Pelimoto says this about the Jawas.
I gave him a list.
Of parts?
Yeah.
And they find them for you?
I don't ask, they don't tell. They get me what I asked for in exchange. I let them pick through my dumpster.
So, since they bring her parts and she's more of a hoarder than anything else, they probably do not get other parts from her dumpster, but rather food. Just as the Womp rats do. Okay, so now that we have established quite a few parallels between Womp rats and Jawas, what could be the history here? Let me give you my current headcanon. Sometime in the distant past, humanoids came to Tatooine, a planet that was home to the Womp rats, or some ancestors of them. As they built their settlements in the desert, the Tusken either fought them or kept their distance, seeing humans and others as intruders on their land. But not the Womp rats. They saw the human waste as a convenient food source and probably preyed on careless travelers as well. But over time, some of the womp rats gained sentience, either by coincidence, through their contact with the settlers, or potentially through a limited force sensibility. There is a storyline in the non-canonic Star Wars The Old Republic MMO where some force-sensitive Jawas act as shamans of their respective clans. Either way, their sentience gave them the ability to develop their own language. If you listen to them speaking, to me it sometimes sounds like unintelligible chatter of humans. So maybe they picked up the idea of speaking from the settlers, who were wary of the little hooded creatures, so they only spoke in hushed tones in their presence. So that's in turn how the Jawas adapted the language, or languages, and gave the sounds their own meaning. Only later did they actually learn to understand the settlers. Now, if they are essentially more intelligent womp rats, why are they wearing robes and hide their faces under hoods in the first place? Well, that is actually exactly why. Womp rats were known as scavenging and dangerous pests, certainly nobody wanted much to do with, so over time the sentient specimens learned to hide their bodies in scavenged clothes and walk upright to blend in with other species and distance themselves from their womp rat relatives. Their common ancestor might also have been smaller and a little more passive than today's womp rats, and over time they evolutionarily split into the smaller but intelligent Jawas and the bigger, more dangerous and feral womp rats. The scene in Book of Boba Fett, where the womp rat snatches the BD unit, despite animals usually being quite good at distinguishing between edible and inedible things, could even hint at a certain fascination with droids and tech, as can be seen with magpies and shiny things, that significantly developed in the sentient Jawas, leading to their lifestyle of scavenging and trading tech. So this is my version of how these little mysterious rodents evolved from womp rats to babbling flea market dealers with a knack for tech. One last connection to the Tusken that's probably more of a funny coincidence. The headgear Tusken Raiders are wearing looks like a rat snout with prominent teeth, and even similar to the rat suit of Pickle Rick in Rick and Morty. Make of that what you will. So this is it. What do you reckon? Are Jawas basically the sentient relatives of womp rats, or do you favor another lineage for them? Let me know in the comments, I'm very keen to know what you think. Consider leaving a like if you enjoyed watching, and subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of my content in the future. Now, goodbye and take care, my friends, as the friendly Hutt said to the oblivious Jawas, Michusku Anchesku, Mapadesa.